Just picked up this non-running 1980 Murray Moped powered by a Puch E50 engine. This was previously run over by a truck and then was left outside to rot for who knows how long. Previous owners replaced the front forks with EBR racing forks, which are in the chrome, but were maxi size. So a Murray actually uses Free Spirit and Magnum length forks, and they installed maxi length. So as you can see, it's a little bit off the ground. And this center stand is broken and was re-welded at the wrong angle. So this bike definitely has a rough history. Up here you can see the gas tank has been ripped off the frame, at least the mount. And even these pedals you can see are at a slant from when it got hit by the truck. Same with the pedals. This side, this arm has been replaced on this side, but no pedal is added. This pedal has been completely crunched and will need to be replaced. So we might be able to straighten this pedal tube, might be able to bend it back straight. I'll have to try to work on that. But I mainly picked up this bike just for the E50 engine. Previous owner said it was running, but hasn't gotten it to start in a while. So it's non-running as of right now, but it does have compression. And I also wanted to grab these forks for one of my other bikes. So see if we can straighten out this frame and maybe make this a runner. Going over some more of this damage, you can see that cracks are running all the way through this rear luggage rack. That also holds up the rear fender, and it has cracked both all the way on this side, and it's just holding on barely at the top over here. Looks like there were spiderweb cracks going throughout the bike, and someone tried their hand at welding, and you can see the evidence of that on the inside. Someone kind of did some splatter work in there, but I believe I can at least try to fix this or straighten it up. Down here, again, when the truck hit this bike, it ripped off the exhaust mount down here. So I'll need to fabricate pretty much a little lower corner and get that going again. Just to mount this exhaust. This exhaust is completely loose because there's nowhere to mount it. So we'll get that fixed as well. But I want to start beating this back into the right shape. Using the little mini sledgehammer, we can see what we can get this looking like pretty quickly. I removed the rear fender right here, and doing so, it's given me a little bit more access to put in some tools. I then used a 2x4 that has a couple pieces of wood screwed on each end, and I'm using some wood vise clamps to help remove this bend and kink in this rear luggage rack. So hopefully we can get it pretty straight. This is what we're going with so far. Got it about halfway taken out. Let's see what the end result looks like in just a minute. Didn't really film the process, but I was able to weld this rear rack back together, and I bent it so it's at least straighter than it was, and this rear fender is now at least holding on to something other than a piece of string. But we got that rear kind of fixed up. This front headlight is missing, so I'll need to get one of those. But the main reason this is not running is this fuel filter apparently has a really big crack and a huge leak in it. So every time the previous owner would turn on the gas, it would just pour out of this fuel filter. So I'm just going to replace the whole line, and then we'll see if we can try to get started. I got that fuel line installed, so that's ready to go. I also fabbed up a rear exhaust mount since the previous one was ripped off when the truck ran it over. I still need to shape up this back little piece over here, but it should at least hold an exhaust now. When I removed the exhaust to work on this tab, this kickstand actually fell off. So this little ear just ripped off the entire piece, and this little piece doesn't look stock. So someone created their own and then welded it on, and it fell off. So while I had my welder out, I just welded that back on. It's probably strong enough for now, but who knows how long that's gonna last. I also was looking at this exhaust gasket, and it needed to be replaced. So I thought about it, and I'm just gonna take off this top end. I'm gonna clean out the carbon, clean the piston, and get that just ready to go. So let's get that done next. To remove this top end, I need to take off this intake and carb, just using a 10mm on either side. And then I need to use an extension on the 10mm or a deep well 10mm socket, and then you can crack these head studs, or the bolts on the studs. Oh yeah, Jesus. And once we get this replaced, I'm gonna put a new gasket or head gasket, because it looks like the previous one has been leaking. So I need to, like I said, remove this, get the head removed, and then I'll show you the inside. I removed this Bing intake and carb, and they both seem to be original and 14mm. So it's a 114-160 and a 14 square intake, as well as a square intake on, I believe, a 1978 and earlier old fin model higher revving engine. So that's kind of cool. So hopefully we can get this all restored and put back together. Like I said, I still need to remove this head, clean that all off, and maybe clean the piston, and then just new gaskets all around. So let's take this head off and see what the inside looks like. All right, once we got these 10mm nuts removed from the head, let's get this off. Let's see what we're working with. Running rich. So let's clean out this carbon and see how clean we can get it. Actually, before I even take anything off, you can see it's wet, but it's not wet with like gas. This is water. And you can see the little water droplets, or maybe you can't because my camera is terrible, but you can kind of see little water droplets at the end. So water was definitely getting in here, which is not a good sign. But considering the car was open to the elements, it kind of makes sense why some water got in there. So let's clean this all out. Now that we have the cylinder removed, you can see some more water on the piston, evidence of water getting into it from being left outside for a little while. I'm not sure how long, but the inside does seem pretty clean. The crank is nice and free, and it's still shiny, so I believe we're okay there. All right, I've been able to clean out both the cylinder and the head. Everything is nice and clean. The outside fins still have a lot of crud in them, but I'll just power wash it off some other time in the future because I don't really care. But head is clean and cylinder is clean. Boost ports are also nice and shiny. Both gasket surfaces are ready to go, so let's put it back together. I was removing this base gasket to put a new one, and when I did so, water was actually pouring out. So in here, it's actually full of water, and you can see it that it poured out. So kind of see it right there, that water line. So I'm going to take this bike outside and blow some compressed air in there and just clear that all out. A lot of this water has dripped out while moving it out from the garage, but as you can see, it is pouring out. So let's get some compressed air and just Alright, I'm probably going to let this dry out just for a second before we put it back together. I've gone ahead and removed the piston to deep clean it further, and it is probably one of the nicest stock E50 pistons I have ever seen. It is very, very low usage, or just really well taken care of. Very, very nice piston. So I'm actually very happy for this rebuild. And actually these internals are super clean too. Besides being drowned in water for who knows how long, it's actually extremely smooth in there, and everything seems to be in pristine condition. And judging by this reddish brown goo, this is the original from the factory seal for the cases. So this case has never been opened, and so this must be a very low mileage bike, which is pretty awesome. Let's get it put back together. Now that we have that piston cleaned off and the inside cleaned out, crankshaft is nice and minty. I put a new base gasket, opened up the transfer ports on the gasket so that there's no restrictions there, and just have to reassemble the original top end, and we should be able to get this started pretty soon. With that thinner base gasket installed, you can see that we've improved the squish on the cylinder and piston. I'm going to be installing a thinner 0.2 millimeter head gasket, and this should help increase torque and overall power throughout the power band. Should help out with this higher revving engine, and maybe even go a little bit faster. So let's get the head installed and maybe try to start it up. For this top end, I'm actually going to be putting brand new hardware, just stainless steel M6 nuts and washers. You're going to need 8 of them total of each, and that should cover both the intake, exhaust, and all 4 of the head mounting nuts. So that should help clean up the look and just give it a fresh little bit of life. I was going ahead and cleaning out the carb while installing new gaskets, and I pulled out the atomizer and was cleaning it up, and you can see it's a 212 atomizer, 2.12, and it should be a 2.22. So the atomizer is a little bit small, but it does have the number 62 jet, so that is stock for this carb. It should run, but I just thought that was interesting. So I'm gonna put this back together and move along. I got the top end back together, and I was wondering why this clutch cable wasn't grabbing. And I come over here, and the clutch lever is missing its actual screw. So again, luckily I have parts, and there's a little screw in there and a little fitting that holds on to the clutch cable, and that's just completely gone on this one. So I'm gonna get this installed, and hopefully that helps. And while I'm at it, I'm going to be replacing the brake switch that is missing on this side. You can see that whoever attached some cables to a random fitting, but the brake switch goes into this little hole right here, and these wires go onto it. So let me get that replaced as well. We have that new clutch cable lever installed, and everything is working nicely. We're going to fill it up with some fresh gas, or at least mix the old with some new, and let's see if we can get it started. I'm gonna go ahead and swap out the spark plug for a new one. I got this one gapped out correctly, and I wiped down the threads. Just need to get this installed, and we can try to get this started. jetting is off, and I'm sure it needs a lot of work, but and none of the brakes are actually doing anything, so those are going to need work. But we do have a running bike, so let's clean it up a little bit more. I was able to find a headlight in my parts bin over here, and it's not in the greatest condition. It's got some rust, but I might be able to polish out the chrome. It should help at least complete the look for this bike instead of it being so naked in the front end. I will need to get a new rear tail light eventually, but that's for a treats order later on. But let's just get this mounted up and possibly wired up. Now that we're able to put this headlight on, it's looking a lot better. The patina matches the bike pretty damn well, so it's funny how that went. I did get the rear tab welded onto this exhaust so that I can have this maxi length pipe on a magnum length bike. But yeah, so we'll have to clean it up further in the next one.